I travel alone frequently for my job as a landscape photographer, which means I often stay in very remote motels where the nearest town is miles away. I'm usually not easily scared, but this experience in a roadside motel in rural Nevada made me stop traveling for months. It was a single-story building, shaped like an L, with parking spots right in front of the doors. I checked in around 11 o'clock p.m. The owner was a strange, quiet man who stared at me a little too long before handing over the physical metal key. He put me in room 9, which was at the very end of the row, next to a supply closet. The room was freezing when I walked in. It smelled like bleach and old cigarettes, that smell that never really leaves cheap motels. I threw my camera gear on the small round table and checked the room. It's a habit of mine. I checked the shower under the bed and made sure the window locked. Everything seemed fine, just old. There was a large mirror bolted to the wall opposite the bed. It looked a bit odd because it was slightly tilted, but I didn't think much of it. I was exhausted. I double-locked the door, put the chain on, and got into bed. I woke up at exactly 2:43 a.m. I didn't know why at first. The room was pitch black, and the silence of the desert outside was heavy. Then I heard it. A soft scratching sound. It was coming from the wall right behind my head. At first, I thought it was a rat or maybe a branch brushing against the building outside. I held my breath and listened. The scratching stopped, and then I heard a distinct click. It sounded like a latch sliding. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. The sound hadn't come from outside. It came from directly behind the headboard of the bed. I slowly reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. I shone it around the room. Nothing. The door was still chained. The window was still closed. I told myself I was imagining things and tried to lie back down, but I couldn't relax. 10 minutes later, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. It was a cough, a suppressed, wet cough, and it came from the wall facing the bed directly behind that large, tilted mirror. I froze. The realization hit me instantly. There was a space behind that mirror. I grabbed my heavy flashlight, which I keep for self-defense, and stood up. I walked toward the mirror, my legs shaking. As I got closer, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The edge of the mirror didn't sit flush against the wall. There was a tiny gap, maybe a quarter of an inch. I put my face close to the gap, trying to see behind it. Suddenly, a blast of warm air hit my face, smelling of sweat and stale food. Someone was breathing right on the other side. Before I could pull away, a voice whispered from the darkness behind the glass, "Turn off the light." I didn't scream. I didn't think. I grabbed my car keys and my camera bag and sprinted for the door. I struggled with the chain lock for a second that felt like an hour, expecting someone to burst out from behind the mirror and grab me. I got the door open, ran to my car, and sped out of the parking lot, tires screeching. I drove for 20 miles before I called the police. They investigated the motel the next morning. They found a hidden corridor running behind the walls of rooms 9 and 10. It was accessible through the supply closet I had noticed earlier. Inside the narrow space, they found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and a chair positioned directly behind the two-way mirror in my room. The owner of the motel claimed he knew nothing about it, but the police found a set of peepholes drilled into the walls of 3 other rooms as well. I realized that while I was sleeping, someone had been sitting just inches away from my face, watching me in the dark, waiting for me to turn off the flashlight. Two years ago, I had to stay in a mid-range hotel in downtown Detroit for a conference. It wasn't a bad area, but the hotel was massive and felt impersonal. I was on the 14th floor. I remember the hallway being incredibly long and the carpet having this dizzying geometric pattern. I got to my room, swiped the key card, and walked in. It was a standard room, 2 queen beds, a desk, and a TV. I unpacked my suit, took a shower, and ordered room service. Everything was normal until I tried to go to sleep. I am a light sleeper, so I always put the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door handle before bed. I remember doing it distinctly because the sign was plastic and made a loud clacking sound against the wood. I locked the deadbolt, but this door didn't have a chain lock or a swing bar, just the electronic deadbolt. I checked it twice, turned off the lights, and went to sleep around midnight. I woke up because I felt a draft. The air conditioning unit was off, but I felt cool air moving across the room. I opened my eyes. The room was illuminated by the city lights coming through the sheer curtains. I looked toward the door. It was wide open. My stomach dropped. I lay perfectly still, pretending to be asleep, scanning the room through squinted eyes. The heavy door was standing wide open, letting light from the hallway spill onto the carpet. I knew I had locked it. I knew I had put the sign on the door. Then I saw the shadow. Standing in the entryway, just inside the room, was a figure. It was a man, wearing dark clothes. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, staring at the beds. He took a step forward and the floorboard creaked. He wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. He walked slowly toward the desk where my laptop and wallet were sitting. I slowly reached my hand under my pillow where I kept a small pocket knife, a habit from my dad. My hand shook uncontrollably. The man picked up my wallet. He opened it, looked inside, and then set it back down. He didn't take it. This wasn't a robbery. He turned away from the desk and looked toward the bed where I was lying. He began to walk toward me. I tightened my grip on the knife, ready to spring up and fight. He stopped at the foot of the bed. He stood there for what felt like 5 minutes, just breathing. I could hear the fabric of his clothes rustling as he shifted his weight. Then, he slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out something metallic. It glinted in the hallway light. It was a key card. He placed the key card on the end of the bed, right near my feet. Then, he turned around, walked out of the room, and closed the door gently until it clicked shut. I leaped out of bed and ran to the door, throwing the deadbolt. I grabbed the room phone and called security, screaming that someone had been in my room. When security arrived, they checked the electronic lock logs. The log showed that a key card had been used to open my door at 3:15, but it wasn't a master key, and it wasn't a duplicate. The system said it was my key card. I looked at the key card the man had left on the bed. It was identical to the one I had in my wallet. The hotel staff insisted I must have been given 2 keys and lost one, but I knew I had only been given one. The man didn't just break in. He had a clone of my specific key. And the scariest part wasn't that he came in. It was that he didn't steal anything. He just wanted to show me that he could get in whenever he wanted. I checked out immediately and sat in the lobby until the sun came up. I never found out who he was, but sometimes I still dream about him standing at the foot of my bed. I used to work as a night auditor at a historic hotel in New Orleans. The place was beautiful but old, full of creaky wood and strange noises. We were undergoing renovations on the 2nd floor, so that entire floor was closed off to guests. It was completely empty, no furniture, just stripped floors and plastic sheets hanging everywhere. I worked the front desk on the ground floor alone from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. one Tuesday night. Around 2 a.m. I received a call from room 304. The guest, a businessman named Mr. Henderson, sounded annoyed. He asked me to tell the people in the room directly below him to keep it down. He said they were banging on the ceiling and talking loudly. I felt a chill go down my spine. Room 304 was on the 3rd floor. The room directly below him was room 204, and room 204 was on the closed, empty floor. It had been stripped down to the studs weeks ago. I told Mr. Henderson I would check it out, assuming it was maybe a pipe banging or the old building settling. I grabbed my flashlight and the master keys and took the service elevator to the 2nd floor. When the elevator doors opened, it was pitch black. The hallway was filled with dust and smelled of sawdust and old plaster. I walked down the hall, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. It was silent. Dead silent. I reached room 204. The door was unlocked because construction crews were in and out during the day. I pushed it open. The room was empty. No carpet, no bed, just bare wooden floorboards and exposed beams. I walked to the center of the room and listened. Nothing. I shined my flashlight up at the ceiling. Everything looked normal. I went back to the desk and called Mr. Henderson. I told him the room below was empty and under construction, so it must have been the pipes. He got angry. He said, "I'm not crazy. I can hear them right now. They are scratching on the floorboards directly under my bed." I apologized and promised to do another round. I didn't want to go back up there, but I had to. This time, I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs to the second floor. As I opened the stairwell door, I heard it. It was a low, rhythmic thumping sound coming from down the hall. Thump, thump, thump. It was coming from room 204. My heart started racing. I walked quietly down the hall, trying not to make a sound. The thumping got louder. It sounded like someone jumping up and down on the floorboards. I reached the door of 204. It was closed, even though I had left it slightly ajar. I put my hand on the knob. It was cold. I turned it and threw the door open, shining my light inside. The noise stopped instantly. The room was empty. But then I saw it. In the center of the room, on the dusty floor, there was a single set of bare footprints. They weren't dusty footprints leading in from the hall. They were clean spots in the dust, as if someone had been standing there and then vanished, and they were huge. I backed out of the room, terrified. As I was closing the door, I heard a sound that made me quit my job that very night. From the corner of the empty room, where the shadows were deepest, a voice mimicked Mr. Henderson perfectly. It said, "I'm not crazy. I can hear them right now." I ran down the stairs, grabbed my bag, and left the hotel. I didn't even lock the front door. I called the manager from my car and told him I was done. I don't know what was in that room, but it wasn't a pipe, and it wasn't a person. It was something that could listen, and something that could mimic. Last summer, my wife and I took a road trip along the coast. We stopped for the night at a cheap motel in Oregon because we were too tired to keep driving. It was one of those places where the doors opened directly to the outside parking lot. The room was dated with wood paneling and a heavy, musty smell, but the bed looked clean enough. We went to sleep around 10 o'clock p.m. My wife fell asleep instantly, but I was restless. I had this nagging feeling that we weren't safe, which was stupid because the area was quiet. Around 1 a.m., I finally started to doze off. I was awakened by a metallic clink. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, lit only by the faint orange glow of the street lamp outside coming through the gap in the curtains. I lay still, listening. The sound came again. Clink, it was coming from the closet. The closet in this room had those old-fashioned accordion folding doors with small metal handles. I looked over at the closet, which was directly across from the foot of the bed. The doors were closed. Then I saw the handle move. It wasn't a draft. The small metal knob slowly twisted to the left, then to the right. Someone was inside the closet, trying to open the door from the inside. The problem was, the track was rusty and stuck. The person inside was pushing gently, testing the resistance. I felt a wave of pure terror wash over me. I reached over and shook my wife awake. I put my hand over her mouth so she wouldn't scream and whispered, "There is someone in the room." Her eyes went wide. I sat up and yelled in my deepest, most aggressive voice, "Get the hell out of here! I have a gun!" The movement on the closet handle stopped instantly. For a second there was total silence. Then the closet doors exploded outward. They didn't slide open, they were kicked off their tracks with massive force. A man burst out of the closet. He was skinny, shirtless, and looked wild. He held a knife in his hand. He didn't attack us. He looked at me, realized I was awake and ready to fight, and he bolted for the main door. He unlocked it in 1 second and sprinted out into the night. I jumped up and slammed the door shut, locking it and dragging the heavy dresser in front of it. My wife was sobbing on the bed. I called 911 immediately. When the police arrived, they examined the closet. They found that the back panel of the closet had been removed. It led into a crawl space that ran behind all the rooms in the motel row. The man hadn't just been in our closet. He had access to every single room. But the detail that haunts me the most is what the police found inside the crawl space directly behind our room. They found a small stool and a notebook. The notebook was filled with observations about us. Couple, room 4, male is awake, female is sleeping. Waiting for male to sleep. He had been sitting there for 3 hours, watching us through a crack in the wood, just waiting for my breathing to slow down so he could come out and do whatever he had planned with that knife. I haven't slept in a motel since. If I can't afford a high-security hotel, I sleep in my car.